6:31. The first item is to adopt tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion's been made and seconded to adopt tonight's agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none.
Is this where we approve the minutes?
Item five.
Where is that?
Item 5.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that motion passes. Item 3. Nate?
Oath of office. We have 4 of them that need to go tonight, so Tim, you want to start first?
Sure. I, Tim Hoffman, do solemnly swear to affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America and the state of Minnesota, and faithfully discharge the duties as a member of the City of East Bethel Park Commission in the County of Anoka and the state of Minnesota to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Sue, you want to go?
I, Susan Jefferson, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America and the state of Minnesota, and faithfully discharge the duties as a member of the City of East Bethel Park Commission in the County of Anoka and the state of Minnesota to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Denise?
I, Denise Lashinsky, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America and the state of Minnesota, and faithfully discharge the duties as a member of the City of East Bethel Park Commission in the County of Anoka and the state of Minnesota to the best of my ability, so help me God.
And finally, our newest member, Al.
I, Al Westland, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America and the state of Minnesota, and faithfully discharge the duties as a member of the City of East Bethel Park Commission in the County of Anoka and the state of Minnesota to the best of my ability, so help me God.
All right, thanks
Welcome
everyone.
officially.
Welcome,
There's no
Al.
backing out now, Al.
Where's the fourth one? I thought.
That was 4.
Do you not count?
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
All right, moving on. Item 4, election of chair and co-chair.
I would like to make a motion to make Bill Zimmerman the chair once again.
I'll second that.
Does anybody else want it?
I didn't miss the meeting.
All right, motion has been made and seconded to make Bill Zimmerman, me, the chair. Any discussion?
You do a great job. Yes. You're so
Yeah,
official
you-
and so
You
nice.
haven't been here that long,
All
anyway.
right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Co-chair?
I nominate Denise to remain as co-chair.
I'll second that one too.
Motion's been made and seconded to make Denise the co-chair. Any discussion?
She does a great job. Thank you. I'm not the nice one. I like sitting by you.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And thank you, Denise. Item 5. Approve the minutes from January 10th meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I was gonna say, this, I noticed in the, city council meeting minutes,
Yeah.
should I say anything about that?
We can bring that up from, you talking from the city council meeting from last
That
month?
just says that, Steve Voss was on Parks, served on Parks, and I don't think that he ever.
I think a long time ago he did, before he was a council person.
I don't think so.
You don't think so? He
No.
told me that before.
I don't remember that, but that's okay, I just wanted to mention it.
Okay.
So back to the minutes from our last meeting.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All right, a motion has been made and seconded to approve our minutes from our January 10th meeting. Any discussion?
I do have one question. I noticed my name is spelt wrong in one point. Does that matter?
I can make a change.
It's just under 4.0, it's the second paragraph, and it's land instead of land.
Oh, gotcha.
Pretty simple.
I can make that correction. That's noted.
It was probably spell check.
Probably
Yeah.
was. Right.
Mine is a common misspelling too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
All right, with that change, any more discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And that minutes are passed. Item 6, park financial information.
Not a lot to show on here, this was only a couple weeks into the season, into the year. First page is our capital funds. We have a starting balance of $8,578 in our park acquisition and development fund. That's kind of what we're gonna be discussing here with the city council on those fees that go into that fund. The second fund is the transfer from the general fund, and that balance is at $237,341. We do have that outstanding trail cost coming out of that for last year of about, I think about $70,000. And, so that'll knock it down to about 160 for us, for a balance going into this year. And we'll be going over all that stuff when we do our park capital planning in the next few months too, so.
I was gonna ask about replacement, equipment replacement. Do we have anything specific that we're replacing this year for the parks public works?
This year we did have the Booster West skateboard park equipment plan for this year. It's something we can talk about going forward if it's something that we think we still need. We kind of talked about that for the Coon Lake Beach development down there, whether or not there was a big need for that stuff anymore.
You talking about
And then,
this one?
Yeah, the 17,000, actually.
on the second page? Let me go to that one, sorry.
Expense statement.
That's the annual transfer that we do for equipment, so that covers,
I didn't know if we had anything specific we were looking at, like lawnmowers or something.
this year,
like
I think all we have is a trailer plan. So that comes out right at the first of the year for the entire year. That covers all of our equipment, and it goes into a fund that we have saved up to cover those costs, so we don't have to do any bonding for any equipment purchases. So all of it's already saved up for when it comes time to purchase it, so.
So it comes out of this fund, moved into a.
Goes back into a, equipment replacement fund. And there's a rolling balance in there that's, we set up a spreadsheet based on what we're gonna need in what year, and so how much we need to save each year to get to that point, and that's the amount for parks that we save each year. That might have to start going up, where we're seeing, prices, like everything's getting a lot more expensive. Might have to do a little bit of an increment bump up in that when we do budget planning for this year. Some of the equipment in this fund also is used for public works, so there's a little bit of crossover on some of it, but it's mainly mowers and specific stuff for the parks. The Bobcat kind of comes out of this fund sometimes, but it's out of public works fund too, so. Any other questions on the operations budget?
Oh, that was the only question I had.
Move to approve the parks financials?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the park financials. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Nate. Item 7.
Item 7, Staff and Park Commission will continue discussions on the future direction of the city's parks and projects with the City Council liaison, Tim Miller. The purpose of this discussion will be to formulate goals and objectives for park development program and to update the commission on issues currently before the City Council. So with that, we'll bring Tim up.
Whoops, I wrote something down here. First of all, I'd like to say congratulations to Al here tonight and everyone else who's taking their oath.
Thank you.
Serving the city and having a commission seat is not only an honor, but a very important piece, and in my opinion, it's crucial in the success and growth and preservation of our city. Understanding that, the advice you give today can have large impact on what the future holds for East Bethel and its residents. It's important to focus on the true needs of this city and being able to separate them from just the wants. To understand that you are a part of a team, a very crucial team. To support that team, even when that team may not agree with the play that you call, you still support the team 100%. Whether you're sitting right here at this table or you're sitting in the crowd back there, you are a resident of our city first. You have offered your time and service to the improvement and preserving our city, and you took an oath to try to do that to your best of your abilities. For that, I am thankful, the city thanks you also. If you've been watching the council meetings online or in person, which I hope every committee or advisory role member on the commission is doing, you know that some feathers have been ruffled in the social media, and it has been tough on what they call the new council. I will not stand here tonight and claim that I'm speaking for the whole city council, because I'm not. I will, however, say as a councilman, I will try. This is easier when it's flat. I will try and make decisions using the best of my ability based on the best advice that I can get. I will try and keep improving this city. I will not rubber stamp anything, and I will base every decision using as much logic and common sense for this city, period. That's never going to change. I will try and keep this seat strong, if not stronger, based on applicants for these positions for our committees, and encourage citizens to get involved and keep trying, because we do need your input, which is one of the big reasons, as you've seen, we brought back the open public forum. It's my seat that will burn the heat when making a decision based on the advice we receive from committees and commissions, not the committees. So I ask you to give me the best advice you possibly can, from the smallest situation to the largest. This means committee recommendations, unfortunately, might be turned down on occasion, but I can assure you they are not being ignored. Please keep in mind that our committees are there to offer advice and not put down a directive, and we are not going to be 100% right all the time. We are human, just like you guys are, and there's going to be occasions when a committee might make a wrong decision, but we work together to try and fix every decision we make as a unit, as a city. But by doing this, we want to improve the odds. We want to improve our odds with experience when we can, from both a business point of view and a local position, and logical, because it increases my ability to make those decisions that benefit us today and into the future, and that's where your help is crucially needed. Moving forward, the council will be breaking down the needs and wants of the fire department to try and provide the tools needed to ensure the safety of not only our first responders, but our residents, which will happen later tonight. We look for direction as we go over park dedication fees to see if it meets our needs and visions moving forward. And here's a final thought as we move forward. If we all work and we make the work that we are doing today better than what we did yesterday, we have a common goal between us. The city deserves just that. And as we move forward, there's going to be times when we may not see eye to eye, but we are adults. We know how to have a dialogue, and we can fix things. Nothing is set in stone in anything. We need committees, commissions, and advisory councils that are on a team. We are offering that team. We all want to work together for our future. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Nate, you got anything?
Well, we got a few minutes. The Minnesota Twins Youth Clinic, we mentioned before the meeting, but so everybody's up to date. They are looking at hosting a clinic at the Maynard Peterson ball field that we were kind of working on with that youth softball organization to kind of upgrade. And they're looking at doing that on, I think it's going to be May 21st. I'll give you more details once we have it, but they're talking about having a couple food trucks and then hosting a Twins clinic there, so.
That's good, because it's been about 10 years since they've been here, so.
Yeah, they did it at Booster Day, correct?
Right.
Jack and I were talking about, yeah.
And I have a couple ideas where we can actually get more information out, because we had a lot of people kids coming from out of East Bethel,
Oh,
because, we're just a small community, but Connexus Energy actually put it in their newsletter, and a couple other bigger corporations, I guess you would say.
would that field be able to handle enough people there?
We did it only on one baseball field
Sure.
over on the west side there, so.
Okay, that's,
And they also, like to have high school kids from the baseball team recruited to help actually with it.
okay.
So, cause they'll do a pitching clinic and then a catching clinic usually. So,
Sounds
they'll
good.
send out information beforehand.
Cool.
Other than that, the outdoor rink is open and skatable now. It's been a rough year for that from all the snowfall and rain that we've had. It's been hard to keep that thing in good shape, but it's in nice shape now. The ice rink, the new organization that's running the concessions there is doing fantastic. They're making a lot of money. It's really nice. If you haven't been inside there, you should check it out. Our cross-country ski trails have been groomed and have been open all winter, so that's another opportunity to get outside. And sledding hills at Booster Park and a couple other neighborhood parks are available too, so.
Can you tell if the outdoor rink is getting used a lot?
We can tell some nights it has. When it finally got in good shape, it was very cold, so I'm hoping
Okay.
the next week here, there'll be a lot more people using it.
Cool. Anything else?
That's all I have. Anything else for me or anybody else?
Commissioners, you have anything?
No.
Take a motion to adjourn.
I'll
I
make
make-
a motion.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn our first meeting of the night. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Meeting adjourned. Meeting one adjourned.
Right.
I'm going to call to order the East Bethel City Council work meeting for February 6th. Is there a motion to adopt tonight's agenda?
Make motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
Motion made, second?
Second.
Second. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have an agenda.
At
Item
this,
3.
at this time, I'll request the Parks Commission to call their meeting to order for the joint City Council Parks Commission work session.
All right, Park Commission, I will call tonight's Park Commission Joint City Council work session to order.
I'll make a motion. A second?
Motion's been made and seconded to call the meeting to order. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are your mics on? Okay. Okay, good.
Item 4, joint Parks Commission City Council work session to discuss park dedication fees. The current park dedication fees were established by ordinance revision that was approved on August 5th, 2015. Article 7, Section 66-195 of the City Code was amended to include reduction of the not-to-exceed fee for residential park dedication from $6,000 to $2,000 per lot, exempting one habitable homestead per subdivision if applicable, and reducing the park dedication for commercial industrial development from a not-to-exceed fee of $4,500 to $2,000 per acre. Within the current ordinance residential requirement, the city can either elect to require dedication of up to 10% of the new development for parkland or receive funds equal to 10% of the market value of the property prior to development, not to exceed $2,000 per lot. For commercial or industrial development, this is lowered to 5% with a not to exceed value of $2,000 per acre. These lower fees were adopted to compensate for higher water and sewer costs of the city's small customer base standalone utility system. Lower park dedication fees were put in place to maintain the competitive balance required to offset the lower SAC and WAC charges of the market area municipalities. The need to update these fees to meet demands for park improvements and new facilities was discussed at the December 13th, 2022 Parks Commission meeting. The commissioners discussed the existing dedication fees, demands placed on park facilities due to new development, and reviewed the fees charged by other cities in the North Metro, along with those of Isani and Cambridge. The Parks Commission recommended considering a per lot unit amount for single-family subdivisions and adopt the same amount for multi-family project in the Seward areas. There is currently legal action ongoing that is challenging the requirement for park dedication fees for commercial and industrial projects. A decision on this court case could also have implications not only for those uses, but could impact those for residential park dedication. Staff has been advised that a ruling on this case could occur this year. Considerations for changing their park dedication fees should include a discussion of the following: a per lot fee for new development as opposed to a percentage of the pre-development valuation of the property. Address the question of proportionality, which is the issue of larger platted subdivisions of land as compared to meets and bounds lot splits. Perhaps a two-tiered system differentiating fees for the higher density R1 and R2 zones in the Seward area for lower density rural residential zones, and establish separate fees for multifamily developments from single-family requirements, and discuss any fee revision should reflect park needs, but at the same time should be aligned to minimize the impact on residential and economic development projects. And adjustments to park dedication fees can be made on an annual basis to balance the needs for park facilities and improvements with market conditions for development. Staff, Parks Commission, and City Council are requested to discuss modification of the existing park dedication fees as they relate to system improvements with consideration as to their impact on residential, commercial, and light industrial development in the Highway 65 corridor. So at this time, is there someone from the Parks Commission that would like to kind of review essentially your last meeting and some proposals that you discussed and wanted to see considered tonight for City Council?
Yeah, I can take a stab at summarizing kind of our discussion. You guys correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but the gist of it came down, at least for the residential side, that we like the idea of keeping a flat fee consistent across all different high density and lower density, simply because of the need for the higher density homes needing more, having more of a need for green space, where kids could go out and hit a ball or whatever, or dogs to run. So I think that's kind of the main summary of the way our discussion went.
I think at your last meeting, you were presented a chart that's exhibited up on the screen that shows park dedication fees for some of our neighbors, which are slightly different from ours. Ours is based purely on valuation. Most of these rely on a unit or per lot cost, which I think is a lot clearer and a lot easier to understand, and probably a lot fair. Ours is based on valuation prior to development, and in some cases these valuations are low, which have resulted in generation of park dedication fees, which probably don't reflect the demands these uses place on our facilities. I looked at these and had a discussion with Nate, and I'm certainly for recommending a change to dedication fees based on units or lots. I think because we can analyze these, evaluate them, and change them annually, and should do it based on what our needs are, what market conditions are. But I would like to start at some lower rates than these because we can adjust them annually. The thing that's going to generate these fees are development. If we set these too high and have no development, then we get no money. So it's one we have to kind of balance and try to find that perfect match for. We had some discussion that my recommendation going forward on this would be single-family residential lots that are in unsewered areas be $1,500 per lot. Nate did some studies and found out that currently, these are probably coming in at about $2,000 per lot, based on what we currently have with the valuation. But the ones in the higher densities aren't coming in at that. But I would recommend that we bring that down to $1,500 a lot. I think it'll more than cover what we need, because we can have 4 or 5 of these developments that will generate only as much as one in the Seward area. I would also propose consideration of $1,200 per Seward lot. Generally, when we have these, a perfect example would be Viking Preserve that had 48 lots. So if it was $1,200 per lot, that would have been $54,000. I think that's double what we got from the valuation process. And this doesn't mean that these are set in stone. It means we'd take a look at them, make sure that they're adjusted every year. And for multifamily homes, I'm sorry, for the Seward lots, it would be $1,500 also, but there would be something in there where we could adjust that based on what improvements that the developer made. If they put in trails, and they could deduct the construction of the trails cost from what the lot times the number of the fees are to determine that final number. And for multifamily homes to have that at $1,200 a lot with the same thing. Just on looking at this for a proposed development that was discussed at the golf course at one time for 300 homes, this would result in $450,000 in park dedication fees, as opposed to what we've probably gotten maybe in the neighborhood of $100,000. So again, you know, we have to be careful on setting these fees that we don't price ourselves out of the market or chase somebody away because of these fees are getting higher, and our water and sewer fees are still fairly high too. Keep in mind one other thing, that next year or in 2025, our Met Council SAC rates will drop $700 when we start the repayment of that reserve capacity loan. So that'll give some latitude too for balancing that out, maybe with some increase in park fees. So these are just some things we've discussed. We're looking for some ideas here from Parks Commission and City Council, and be glad to entertain any questions or any ideas that anyone may have.
Jack, just to recap, for the single-family Seward lot, you were suggesting 1,500 per, right?
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure I got that right. Thank you.
And 1,500 for a
Single family.
residential acreage lot.
Yes.
2 or 3 acres.
And
And the 1,200 was the multifamily
correct.
sewer lots. in the
And,
sewer district.
and with both of those that are in the sewer districts, one of the things that we could consider, let's say we've got a development's coming in, it's got 100 lots. So if the fee were $1,200 a lot, they'd owe $120,000 in park dedication fees. If they put in facilities like trails that are dedicated to the public, then perhaps we might want to say, okay, you can claim 50% of the fees to go to cover your costs for that, but the rest would have to be in cash. So we get $60,000 in cash plus the public dedication of trails or any other facility that was dedicated to the public.
Is there another ordinance that mandates that developments put in trails outside of this, or is that included in this discussion?
There's something in our ordinance that says sidewalks and trails. Those are essentially in rural residential subdivisions, which we've had some discussions on that before. And to me, unless there are trails that link point A to point B, if they're just trails to nowhere and not part of a system, then I don't know if we really want to consider requiring those. Usually in rural residential subdivisions, traffic is low and the city street is probably used as a trail as much as a walkway would be. That's something else, though, we need to look at changing our ordinance. If we change this, we need to change those other things to reflect What we're talking about here is fees.
So that's something for a different discussion. then.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
All right, well, I looked at some other cities that are not in Anoka County that are similar to ours. And the average turned out to be between 2,000 to 2,500, whether it was multi-unit or single lot. So I don't know, what we wanna do with that. If you want me to continue looking into that, or just go with what I found today?
Well, you know, I think we found a pretty good example, and the range that we have here with these is like $1,500 to $2,500 a lot, if you throw Blaine out. I don't think Blaine is a good comparison for us because they're asking essentially $4,500 per lot, which would kill, I mean, maybe nobody would ever build a home here if that was the case, so we don't wanna do that. We wanna do things that, we can work with developers, but at the same time, make sure that they're covering a part of the cost of the impact, or most of the cost of the impact of their development. That's the balancing act, you know, it may not be perfect the first year, but then this should be a process that we do every year, is to evaluate these fees based on what our projected plans are, and then modify these costs to reflect that. Keeping in mind too, you know, number one, are we gonna have any development that year? And making sure that we don't do things to chase developers away.
Well, I know some of the commercial vendors were saying that they weren't actually using the parks or trails or walkways, but everywhere that I've been, if there's a courtyard or something, it's usually connected to some kind of walk.
Yeah.
So, do we need to look at that? I mean,
Yeah. Are you talking about like for commercial or industrial development?
right, where we
Well-
would put in a walking
Yeah.
trail or bike trails or something like that.
And as I just briefly mentioned, I didn't put all the details in, there is a court case now
Right.
going on that certain developers have challenged the state statute for park dedication fees, or the authority for cities to require those. And it's been based on, there's been a lot of cities in the past that have really inflated those costs to use those fees actually to cover maybe other things in those intended uses. And from what I've been told is that there's probably a pretty good chance that these developers may prevail in this case, which could totally eliminate the commercial and light industrial. Now, what its impact would be on residential fees is yet to be determined. So that's why we've proposed nothing in here for the commercial industrial for this year, because we don't really know what's gonna happen to it.
One more quick question, Jack. How is the multifamily defined? Is that, like, the Elevage has the townhomes in there?
Well,
And how does an apartment complex?
an
fit into
apartment
that?
would be multifamily, anything that would be 2 or more dwelling units within the same structure.
Okay, so if it was an apartment complex that had 10 units in it,
Correct, it would be multifamily.
Well, and we still wouldn't be charging for, people that divide their lots, right?
Correct. There would still be that administrative lot split cost, which is currently now essentially $2,000. And, you know, that's another thing that, you know, is that if we lower the cost on the other, do you wanna lower the cost on that? We don't have that many, and, I'm either way on that. It doesn't seem to be a hindrance to it, but at the same time, I don't wanna overcharge anybody either.
I think at the December Park Commission meeting, one of the things the Park Commission recommended at the time was $2,500 per unit for both residential and multifamily. And we went back and looked at the last 5 single-family home developments that have been put in East Bethel. This is over the last maybe 6 years. And they're all right around, what we charge is pretty close to $2,000. One was 10 lots, their fee was $20,000. One was 15 lots, Their fee was $27,500, so a little bit below the $2,000 threshold. Anderson Meadows was 10 lots, and that was $18,600, so that was about $1,300 underneath the $2,000 threshold. Prairie Hills was 16 lots, that was $30,700, so about another $1,300 under the $2,000 threshold. And the last one we have is 10 lots, and that was $20,000, so it's right at 2,000. We wanted to try and get to a flat rate, because right now with the park dedication based on percentage, it makes it easier for the park commission to know what they're gonna have to recommend, so they'll have the dollar amount up front, and it's good for the developer to know when they come in that this is what their fee is gonna be for each lot too, rather than trying to go through the appraisal process. And maybe it would just make it a lot simpler. So whatever fee we decide, I think we should go to a single fee. That would be very good way to tackle this, so. And like Jack said, we can adjust this fee going forward if we find it's too high or too low, or.
Is this fee up front? So when we decide we're gonna do 100, units or something in a development, the developer is paying that right away?
Correct, yep, before the plat's finalized, yep.
So Nate, on your comments that 2,000 was a normal fee that you're talking, then you said that some of the developments were 1,300 less or whatever.
Total
What
less.
determined that?
That was based on the 10% value, so the 10% value right now is pretty close to $2,000 a lot. It almost evens out on the last 5 developments to be about $2,000 a lot.
So is it better to go with just the 2,000 flat fee instead of a 10%?
That's what
know what I
the
mean?
park commission
Yeah,
and
That would
staff
probably
are
be the best way, because otherwise you're going up and down, and
Yeah,
probably
Yep.
people start questioning, well, why they pay this, why this?
where you run into problems with the flat fee in terms of paying fair share is when you get in multifamily developments. Then they're actually paying a lot less. So that's why we wanna put a unit cost on those rather than the 10%
So
valuation.
multifamily, why are you talking like a townhouse?
Yeah, or the apartments and any apartments or things like
Okay,
that.
but now if the size of the lot, if you got an 8-unit building, so then would it be like 2 units per lot? Is that how you determine that?
No, it would be per lot or per unit, so you'd be basing
the
that on
8
per unit.
Unit would only be 2,000.
Well, it'd be 8 times whatever the fee is,
Eight times
8 times
yeah.
2, okay.
Or
2,000 for each
12,
unit.
or,
Right, that's what I'm wondering. So
or
like if you
1,200,
have-
1,500, whatever you said it, it'd be 8 times the fee.
When we had that discussion, was that at our December meeting? It was, that's kind of where our minds went to, when you have that, eight units on that small space, where I live, I've got 2.5 acres. I can let the dog out and
Yeah.
run in
Right.
my yard, my boys can go out and hit a baseball. So
Right.
when you have that high density, you're paying more, but you also have, in some ways, a higher need for a park and some green space
Right,
close by.
right, because you don't have any land or anything.
So that was kind of where we were at with it. And why we said, let's set it the same, whatever that value is.
And, taking off on what Bill says, on lots that have 2.5 acres, while everybody wants, and that has impact on park usage, I don't think those lots have as much impact as the multifamily or the higher density units do.
Right, because you got.
So that's why I was thinking we could maybe look at possibly lowering those going into this and then setting a fee for those multifamily things, which because of their sheer number of volume of units will generate a lot more money. And I think we need to be careful that we don't set it too high going in. We can always adjust it.
Right.
These things are not set in stone. We can adjust this every year, and that's what we're required to do anyway. We normally do it through our capital improvements plan, but this would be in addition to that. So I think it would help maybe with some of the residential subdivisions, which we're probably gonna have more of than anything else. And again, I think those do place additional demands on our park system, but not as much as the higher density ones do.
That's one of my questions, Jack. Up in the, the R1, R2 with the utilities, that's the sack and whack charges are one of the big things that, developers up there complain about, so.
Yeah, and that's why these park fees were kind of set like they were on valuation, is to try to compensate for that, is to try to keep us somewhat competitive with surrounding areas. And even though we're still paying those higher fees and we're not totally competitive, the thing that's driving any interest in East Bethel, generally from our neighbors, especially to the south, is there's lower land prices here. But if you get the park dedication fees too high, along with the sack and whack fees, then that's the way to certainly not have much growth.
Do you know what the fees are up in the utility up there, what the sack and whack are? You know what the price charges are right now?
It's $5,600 for the city sack and whack and $3,185 for the Met Council fee, so it's $87.85 per unit right now. And that's running probably in Blaine and some of those other cities, it's probably running about $4,000 to $5,000. So it's definitely a disadvantage there. But now for Cambridge and Isani though, it's pretty close to the same. Theirs are higher than the most metro cities because they have standalone systems like we do.
I think another factor that we talked about too a little bit is kind of right in that 65 corridor area where we're talking, putting in the higher development or higher density developments is an area where we don't have a nice city park close to that area either. So, when we talk about in that Elevage area, be nice, as that expands to get a nice park in there.
A nice big park.
A nice big park.
Yeah.
Something.
If they develop the golf course and that other land there, put like a 5-acre
Yeah.
golf or park in there, something big.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah, and
just
that's not
based
gonna come
on
free.
the
Yeah.
multi-unit.
Right.
and
Yeah.
We're also looking at the
Right.
bike trail system, so we can get people through the city, since that's what everybody
Hmm.
wants.
Yep.
And that's kind of what we were doing, was projecting out how could we do that and have it sustained financially with the cost of everything going up. And that's kind of what started this whole ball rolling, is how do we do that? So we need to look at this.
Yeah, if you look at the cost to put even a small park in that area, we come nowhere close to covering those costs.
Right. Yeah.
And with our budget, we can't cover the rest of it. I mean, we don't have a big enough budget to cover the rest of that. So somehow we've gotta cover those costs.
Yeah.
If we had $1 million park budget, that'd be-
So, if you wanna head that way, that'd be great.
I did tell you I'd ask for more money every time I talked to you.
Well, and it's a very tricky balancing act, and nobody has the exact formula. And that formula may change even annually, but I think it's something, as long as we have some flexibility in it, I think we can do some increases on this flat rate system, make it a lot simpler to understand, eliminate the confusion, and eliminate that appraisal requirement, because you can have appraisals that vary all over the place. I'd personally like to get away from that and go to some type of flat fee that's reasonable to start out, that's gonna generate more funds for us, but still yet not drive developers off until we can get some things equalized with these sack and whack rates that we charge now. And, just take a look at it every year until we can get this thing to where we really need it. And, for a lot of our parks needs, and especially what you're talking about in the southwestern corner of the city, there are no parks down there. There's Northland Manor, which is fairly close, but there's not much more that you can do with that because it's mostly all wetlands. So what we had originally talked about was, at the time that maybe the golf course develops, that would be a central location for one that could serve all that area, plus the apartments and everything in that sewer district. But like Tim said, we'd be having to look at something 5 acres minimum of good land, not 5 acres of wetlands. So, part of that could be negotiated too, is some of the dedication fee, but we're gonna have to have property, and probably to develop a park, $500,000 unfortunately doesn't go, sometimes now you can't even build a house for $500,000. So this is something we gotta look at too, to be able to generate more funds from the developers who are impacting the demands on these, and yet at the same time, make sure that we're able to get these developers to come in here so they can pay those fees.
Well, it's easier as far as parks go to have it pre-planned instead of waiting until the development is already done and then going in and trying to figure it out. So
Right.
that's also
Yeah.
something to think of.
I do agree with Mr. Smith, though. I think that rural residential, I like that 2,000. You know, the rest of them are fine, but instead of 1,500, I like to see 2,000 for the rural residential myself, so.
Well, would city council like to see us develop a proposed fee schedule for this based on these unit or per lot fees for further discussion?
Sure.
Yes.
Is there anything else you would like to see in this as far as the parks go?
No, I think you got it pretty well covered.
And I think the Parks Commission's done a great job in recommending projects and getting a lot of things done here in the past couple of years. And I'm sure one of the things that we want to do, like Denise says, it'd be nice to have at least some kind of a concept of what we're looking for to meet the space and the demand requirements for that section of the city. And I'm sure that's something that you all will be working on as we go forward. But the thing now to do is these are to be funded. We just have to find a way to find the revenue to do it. And I think this is the first step.
I guess it really doesn't do us any good to have even parkland down there if we can't afford to develop it.
Yeah.
I mean, we got a chunk of land and it's sitting there, a big deal. But we've gotta be able to put in a parking lot, we've gotta be able to put in playground equipment, we've gotta put in whatever else that we want for amenities.
Parking usually.
Exactly, and
Mhm.
just playground equipment's probably gonna cost us $100,000.
Oh, yeah, easy.
Before we even start doing a parking lot and doing any development of the land itself.
Mhm.
So, like Jack said, $500,000 is gonna go before you even know you spent it.
Right.
So, if you look at, if you take Elevage at 200 units, what we're gonna get out of that versus what we need to get out of that to help cover the cost of developing a park, we definitely need to do something with these fees. Not that we wanna put everything on the back of that developer, but we need to put enough of it on the back of that developer that we're at least not sitting there going, okay, now we've got this nice piece of land, now what do we do with it? So,
Jack, I got a question. Are we gonna be able to take advantage of any of the grants that are available for this 50% matching on parks and redevelopment and dedication?
We are looking, but we really haven't found any that we qualify for.
Okay,
Nate and I have talked about this. I think he's gonna have a discussion with Karen Blasco with the county to see what some of the sources they tap into. It's certainly one thing that we will explore to make sure if there is anything out there that we're gonna go for it.
Tim, I'm putting together a list. We're gonna have it at one of our future park commission meetings. I found some grants for the DNR that cover some of that stuff that we'll be talking about that at future
excellent,
park commission capital planning meetings, yep.
perfect.
So what do their grants cover, like equipment, the trails? or-
They've got different ones for trails.
Okay.
They do have some, Booster Park actually was built with a DNR grant at one point,
Okay,
part of that. So there is some for actual parks themselves too.
okay.
They're competitive grants and you have to match everything, but if you can get half of it covered.
Yeah.
And then it's good to have a specific project in mind when we go to it too, so we have something to actually present a good grant application for too, so.
and we'll take any trails you pay for.
Could you repeat that?
Definitely need trails, so we would take any trail you would be interested in. The problem, like Jack said, we don't want a trail to go to nowhere. But right now, our trail system is at such a infancy that pretty much any trail we build goes to nowhere. We need to be conscious when we build them that it's a connector to something that we can
Right.
actually add on to. But we gotta start somewhere. I mean, we've gone years without building a trail segment.
And that's the number one thing that people talk to me about is trails.
Yep, and I
Yep.
get it, they go to nowhere.
But I mean, the trails over here, we had trouble over here because the people didn't want the trails going through their backyards, right?
Well, it wasn't their backyard, they thought it was their
Well, they
backyard.
thought it, yeah. And they, yeah, because I mean, they said if somebody got hurt, that they were gonna sue the city and things like that. I mean, I don't know if we've run into that, hopefully don't run into that
Well, and we
in the
had
new stuff.
proposed one down Palisade at one time, and
Right.
nobody,
Which was for the safety of the kids, so they didn't have to go down Baton
Right.
to get to
Yeah.
Booster Park, but.
The Park Commission has done 2 surveys in the past, and the number one thing overall is always trails.
Yep.
Walking trails. The problem we run into is once the development is in, it's really hard to put a trail in. It needs to go in before development, so the people, when they buy a home or commercial property goes in or whatever it is, it's there at a time. It's hard to go in after the fact, so.
We
That's
even-
something we've really tried to work
We even
on.
had 2 developments, one development said, yes, they came in and asked for a walking trail, and the development that it would have connected to said, we don't want a walking trail. And all we were doing was
Yeah.
connecting the 2
Connecting the
streets.
trails up.
Yeah,
And the Anoka County Parks Department has a master plan for trails that includes East Bethel, but they're quite a long ways out. They include trails along 221st here. It's a north regional trail, but that probably won't be developed until they redo the road and widen the road at that time too. So it's maybe
2050.
decades out.
Yeah.
2050.
Yep.
Yeah.
But there is a plan, and some of that money is available through the Heritage Fund that the state uses for trails. They can use that for those trails, but we're kind of low on the list. They're working their way north from Blaine and Ham Lake right now, so.
but it all starts with one.
one
That-
good one.
Well, and I think the city and the Parks Commission have made great strides in trails by recognizing those areas that can connect someplace and having them done in certain segments. You know, now we have some internal trails within our parks which enhance Booster West and Booster East. We're gonna have a connection that's gonna go from John Anderson Park essentially to Bondi Park, mainly because we worked on it in segments. The same way with trails up to Baton, we've got certain sections in there. We may still have to use a portion of some city streets as part of those connectors for the time being, but we've got one section built out to 224th. We've got another section coming down Baton. We just have to keep working on
They
getting
use
those
the
joined
daylights out
up.
of that too.
Yeah,
And Baton is not a good street you wanna have kids on.
no.
That's,
Well, and you've got, I mean, how many times have you gone down Baton and people walk off those sidewalks into the street
Yeah.
during traffic with strollers and bikes?
at this point, they don't have a choice, cause that's
Right,
Yeah.
where
because
it
it
goes,
ends,
but,
right.
I mean, as we add on to that, that will get better. You know, and we do have the right of way already, or all the easements already done in there, so.
And I wish we could do 221st, but I know that's a pipe dream, but it is so busy with kids and runners and dog walkers.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah, on 221st, when they redid that road 4 or 5 years ago, and on 213th and a part of East Bethel Boulevard, you know, we appealed to the county to do the widening at least to the shoulder. And they were sympathetic to our plea, but they came up with the same thing that we hear all the time. We don't have the money to do it.
Right, well,
So,
and there's been horses
yeah.
too that have had to step down into the ditch that I've seen, so you've got kids
Yeah.
trying to ride their horses somewhere instead of just in their yard, but there's less of those now than there were 10 years ago,
Yeah.
so.
Well, if,
Is there any thoughts from you guys, what you think the park system should be?
I like the way you're going. I mean, I think it's going fine. I like the rates and the fees, and we just gotta, like I said, get some more money. I mean, 34,000 at Elevage, that doesn't buy you a
Doesn't
thing.
even buy us a full
No,
playground
no.
equipment.
Right.
I mean, I was surprised when I heard from what that kind of project in other cities, what they would've got for park dedication fees. I'm going, wow. So,
So is the next step for staff to come up with that schedule or us?
Well, we wanna work it through you, so what I would recommend is that Nate and I can sit down, so at your Parks Commission meeting in March, we can present a proposal for this based on some of these flat rate fees. Some of the discussion we've had tonight for your review and discussion.
Okay. Is there other commissions that need to weigh in on it too? Just from the economic,
Well, this is primarily from a physical standpoint. It's the Parks Commission purview, but the Finance Committee will be looking at this when we start developing our budgets too, so.
I guess I was thinking like, I don't know if this falls under planning or EDA or something, just to make sure we don't set it too high to where it would negatively impact development overall. That's kind of what I was getting at. Or does that fall on the council?
Well, I think, the EDA might not be a bad idea to present it to them, just to keep them in the loop of what's going on, especially as it relates to fees that relate to development. But I think this is primarily a Parks Commission project.
Sure. Okay, I was just thinking from a fail-safe,
Yeah.
make sure we're not going too crazy. Cool. Okay.
Do y'all have anything else or any other comments or questions or concerns or?
Do you guys have anything?
I do have a question. What does it cost for a trail per foot?
I'll give you an example. Nate can chime in on what Booster West costs, but we did most of Booster West ourselves. This trail out here around the pond is like about a little over 3,000 feet. It cost $60,000 in 2009. That was $20 a foot. Now, the latest one we did on Baton Street was $70,000 for about 700 feet, wasn't it?
Yeah, but that included a pretty good
Yeah.
wetland that we crossed.
So that one is about $100 a foot. So, and the one we did over in Booster West was, what was that, Nate?
Well, we did most of the we did all the grading ourselves and all the gravel prep work ourselves, and then we just paid the cost for the asphalt. And I don't have the length, I have it down in my office, but it was $55,000 for the whole project. I could get you the per foot number on that though.
I'm gonna guess that would probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of $20 a foot. But we did it, like Nate said, we did everything but the paving. Unfortunately, they're not cheap.
One of the big things, if you've got wetland, you've got to go cross or go around, that's expensive.
Well, and not all our trails are paved too. Sometimes we leave them natural.
Yeah.
They're not, so that cuts
Those are
some of the
relatively
cost.
inexpensive when they're natural surface. But if you look at finishing Baton, you've got 2 more wetlands to cross.
sure.
It's gonna be expensive. I mean, there's no getting around that.
We obtained the trail easement from Anoka County to connect Norsland Manor to the Viking Preserve area. So we have all that ready to go, but the cost was so high because most of it is in the wetland. And it would have to be either boardwalk or raised platform, and the price per foot for that skyrockets. But that's all set and ready to go in the future if we come across a grant or a way to do it. That'd be a good connection to connect that higher density area and whatever development takes place on Viking to that park that's in that area too, so.
Yep.
We've got a couple like that, or that same way.
Be a very good environmental trail for crossing that stream right there too, and
Yep.
That one had a bridge on it or?
Yeah, it crosses Crooked Brook, so it'd have to have a span bridge as well. So that one's kinda shelved for now, but everything's in place for that if in the future, if we decide to build it.
That'd be a nice one to connect up the Viking Preserve area.
Yep.
To a nice park.
yep, that was the idea.
Anything else? Park Commission? No, I'll take a motion to adjourn the Park Commission.
I'll make a motion.
Don't everybody say it at once.
Okay, I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded to
We're gonna make
adjourn
Al make
the
his
Park,
first motion.
the Park Commission, meeting. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you all for
Thank you.
coming.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thanks, Nate.
Thank you.
Now, Jack, you want to move on? Item number 6, Fire Department Staffing Report.
Thank you, Tim. The fire department is requesting that city council consider the addition of a full-time position for a training officer, community outreach coordinator, and day duty crew responder. This position, if approved, could commence as early as July the 1st of this year or the beginning of 2024. The need for this type of position was formally presented in 2019 by a shared duty crew service study to evaluate the need for and the feasibility of a day duty crew for the cities of Bethel, East Bethel, Linwood, Oak Grove, and St. Francis fire departments. This study was completed by the Fire Services Consulting Company and funded by a grant from the State Fire Marshal's Office. The study was the first to specifically analyze the needs for a full-time shared duty crew to serve those municipalities. All the departments involved in the study agreed that they would eventually be a demand for a fully staffed day duty crew, but none had reached that threshold as of May 2019. The following trends and events that have occurred since that time have brought us to the point where we need to reassess the timing of this need. Those are the increased calls to and reliance on fire departments for non-fire services, employment demographics related to work schedules, meaning that what we've seen over the past 20 or so years is a shift from manufacturing to service type industries and a lot less shift work. Most of our fire department people are daytime employees now. And the increasing difficulty of recruitment and retention of volunteer firefighters. This situation shows no signs of changing as day calls are increasing and the number of volunteer responders are decreasing. The daytime calls for the 2018-22 time frame were 2,029 calls in 2018, increasing to 329 calls in 22. This represents a 43.7 increase in day calls over the past 5 years. The East Bethel Fire Department has reached a situation where the availability of day responders is to the point that our personnel resources are not consistently meeting the needs of service for these calls. As a result, some day responses are sent out with understaffed crews. Creation of this position would provide a 3-person crew that could relieve many of the pressures of day response from department volunteer personnel and provide this service at a fully staffed level. In addition to the fire chief and fire inspector, an additional full-time employee would enable responses to most day calls during the 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday period by these employees. This position would also have other duties as outlined in the attached job description as exhibited in attachment 3 in your packet. The annual cost for this position is estimated to be $80,000, which includes salary and benefits. Funds are available in the 2023 budget to pay for this position from July 1st through December 31st due to the following changes that have been made in the department and their resulting reductions to expenses from this budget items. These being the differential in salaries, reduction of positions within the fire department and officer personnel, and reduction in payments to on-call day responders and overtime pay to the deputy fire chief. This is projected to be a total savings of $43,000 for the second half of 2023. Beyond 2023, costs for this position could be provided through a SAFER grant if it were approved. This grant is usually funded annually over a 2 to 4 year period and declines on a yearly basis to allow time for the transition of this position to be gradually absorbed in the department's budget. Subsequent years funded would be dependent on the terms of the grant. City Council authorized the application for this grant at their January 23rd, 2023 meeting. Rental inspection fees and increased tax revenues generated by development projects within the city's water and sewer district could supplement the SAFER grant. It should be noted after expiration of this grant, the cost of this position, though, would be the responsibility of the city. Approval of this position should cover our day call needs for the foreseeable future and be a less expensive alternative than a shared municipality duty crew and the complications inherent in shared services. Reducing the load on volunteer on-call day responders will also address concerns of burnout and aid in retention and recruitment. Our current staffing levels are at 27 volunteer firefighters, and this number is only 77% of the ideal total of 35 for the department. This work meeting is to review the needs for this request for service and seek direction from council as to the next step in the request. Fire Chief Rodney Sano is here to answer the more detailed questions regarding this proposal and give you any updates that he can on this.
I'm concerned about hiring a full-time training officer at $80,000 a year, just for the fact that I understand daytime firefighters are hard to come by, and it's been that way for many years. And we have mutual aid, and I think any call for the mutual aid fire departments that we work with, everybody should be called out on the calls. We can always turn them back around if we don't need them, once we're on the scene. My thought is, instead of spending $80,000 on another body that's there during the day, and I understand we do need the bodies, but I think that the firefighters, the frontline people that we deal with, and they're there putting their lives on the line all the time, I would think we could use that money to give them more money on call. Because I understand that the firefighters, it's harder to come by nowadays, but I don't know what they get per call. What does that cost, a firefighter?
Our, council member, our firefighter 3 people get $18.49.
Firefighter 3?
Yeah, for
Okay.
a firefighter 3. Firefighter 2 is 16 something per hour.
Okay.
Firefighter 1 is 14 or 15 per
14 or
hour.
15.
And probationary firefighters start out at $13 per hour.
14, okay.
And-
Because see, my thought is that the way things are, I mean, you can work at McDonald's and get $15 an hour in places. So I'm thinking that we could raise the price for the frontline workers to get them so they feel like at least they're getting a good wage for what they're doing. I mean, they put their lives on the line all the time. I was a firefighter for 10 years, and I know what it's like, where some of them might think, well, I can just go to Walmart, McDonald's, or whatever, and get 15 bucks an hour. I don't have to risk my life. So I think if we pay the firefighters more money, so there'll be more initiative to be there for that.
Council member, your mutual aid statement,
Mm-hmm.
that is for fires only.
Really?
Yes.
So can that be changed to medical?
Our mutual aid partners probably would not want to do that.
Really?
But,
Why?
yeah.
And that's also putting a stress on neighboring community.
That also, yeah, then that
On
increases.
They are paying for it to come to our calls.
What?
That is also putting stress on our neighboring communities so that they have to put up man hours to come to our calls.
Right, but if we need them, we call them.
Yeah.
That's why I'm
for
saying.
Fires,
so-
for fires, strictly
I
fires.
understand that. I said we can maybe change that to medical as well. Is that a possibility?
Well, that's what you have to talk to the other cities about.
I'd have to
Because
talk
they're
to
all
the-
shorthanded. I know Oak Grove's
Everybody
shorthanded,
is.
Ham Lake's shorthanded. so
Right,
They're all shorthanded.
exactly, and they always, during the day is
Yeah.
the worst part. But I mean, is it possible to do that?
That's what this shared service survey was for, to go that way, to go to the mutual, where we ran medicals together as cities. And as that, if, on the handout that was given there, East Bethel would cover about 55% of that cost if we did something like that.
And Rodney, you can correct me, some of the cities don't even cover medicals, right? Unless they're life or death. Ham Lake,
There's some cities that do limited services on calls. They have a parameter that they'll go out and respond to these. I personally, it's just me, I do not want to make that decision what call we're going to go on for the person
Oh,
called
right, no, I understand that.
and that, so I
Well,
would
my
not
thought is
reduce our
like-
service.
My thought is if we can talk to them about mutual aid with medicals as well. I mean, not just fires, because we do more medicals than we do fires in our city.
Correct.
That's what, yeah, that's my concern with that. If we can talk to them and see if we can work that out.
Well, then
But then we have to be willing to go to their mutual aid calls.
Exactly.
Which then puts more calls onto our firefighters again.
It works both ways though. I mean, everybody's, if you're mutual aid, you're taking away from their station as well. You know what I mean? So it's gonna be either way with mutual aid on anything.
Yes, it does work both
Right.
ways.
So,
But what you're doing there is by going mutual aiding to each city. Oak Grove does, roughly 500 some calls a year. We do 923 calls a year. Now we just increased it to 1,500 or 1,400 calls per year that we would be responding to. Which then increases the amount of people or the amount of time our people are going out. What we're trying to do here is to, when Chief Anderson retired, he was at the station full-time, even though he was not a full-time firefighter. He responded to a lot of calls. We are trying to just fill that gap. So when I go on vacation or the inspector goes on vacation, we're not there at that station by ourselves. To call mutual aid on a medical is not really a feasible thing because of the distance these people have to travel
sure,
versus a fire, you know?
right.
Because the medical is usually over in 20, 25 minutes. And that. By the time you had mutual aid arrive, you'd be 15 to 20 minutes into that call already.
Right, but I mean, that's what I'm saying, when you get on the scene, you're gonna know what you have to do. If you don't need anybody else, you can just cancel that call, right?
But they're already on the road.
They're already on the road to
Doesn't
the
matter,
station though.
doesn't matter, we did it all the time when you have mutual aid. If you don't need the
Yeah,
people
for-
there, you cancel the call.
Yeah, for fire, but if we cancel,
Same thing with medical.
if we cancel half of the medicals, which medicals are more numerous, how much more time does that put on mutual aid for another city or our city?
We're all short firefighters, that's the thing. So we gotta figure out how to do that by adding another third person. What benefit is that?
Well,
Just because you have 3 people, one of them wants to take a vacation, then what do? Then you're short a firefighter there too.
well, I'm sure there's a plan in place for that.
I don't
Rod,
think so.
correct me if I'm wrong, but currently, among our 27 firefighters now, only 5 are available for day calls, is that correct?
On most days, we have 3 or less. Today, I'm just gonna use today as an example on our calls today. We had 1 firefighter that works for the county, so he is out plowing tonight, so he is home during the day. That was just today. We had another one that was just getting ready to go to work. She was able to come for a little bit to these calls. And we had 1 more that was at the fire station for his daily day job that had an hour break between meetings that he was able to respond. Otherwise, we would have been there with 3 people. And we had the explosion we had today,
Right.
we would have never done it with 3 people. I did call mutual aid in that. I did get the SRT team en route. But most days, we can get maybe 2 to 3 people, and that is it.
And right.
Besides us the 2 full-time people, if
Right.
we are not. So we are stretched. Our daytime firefighters right now, they're responsible for 470 calls they have to run, or that they're responsible for. They have to do the 30%, which is 141 calls. Our nighttime firefighters are doing half that. by getting this third person and that, we can go to a duty crew where our nighttime, our daytime firefighters then can be called less and they can get down to the 70, 75 calls to do 30% in that. And we won't have the burnout. That's what we're getting is, these people the firefighters are burning out because they're responding to so many calls. And, you know, they're just saying, okay, I'm not gonna go to this call today. No matter, you look at the note, they just said, I'm not going, because they're getting burnt out. And we're trying to keep that from happening here.
Right, but burnt out, is that burnt out because they're not getting paid enough, you think?
Chief, why do members of the community want to be firefighters? Is it for doing the duty and volunteer to the city, or is it for the paycheck?
Most of them are for volunteering for the city. The pay doesn't matter. If the pay mattered, I would have quit 20 years ago, because we were getting $9 a call. The pay does not matter to these people.
Mm-hmm.
They're here because they want to help the city. They want to help their people in the city.
That's good, because that's what we want.
And we have increased the pay. In the last 3 years, we have steadily increased the pay. And we are on a pay schedule, the increase. So I don't think it's the pay. I do believe, like I said, they're just getting so many calls, inundated with so many calls, that we need to somehow get our day responders down. And is the person we're gonna hire just a training officer? No, they're a community outreach person. They're gonna go look for grants and that.
Are they EMT certified?
They will be or EMRs certified for sure in that.
Okay.
Right now, an EMR and an EMT with our variants can do just about the same thing. And that.
What's an EMR?
Emergency medical responder.
Okay.
It's the step, it used to be called the first responder,
Oh, yeah, okay.
but they're EMRs. Then you got the EMTs, and then you have a paramedic
Okay.
in that. Our medical direction right now is EMT based in that.
So then of all the firefighters you got 27 firefighters, you got 13 EMTs?
Do we have 13 EMTs?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, really? Okay. I was just looking on the website and that's what it says. So
The website hasn't been updated. We do not have 13
Okay.
EMTs.
you have less than that?
Yes, we have left. We're
Okay.
probably at 10.
Okay.
But we also have 2 paramedics, but they are not covered under paramedics under our medical direction unless they're working their full-time job.
Oh,
Okay?
yeah, they're for volunteer.
Yep.
But all your firefighters are EMRs.
All of our firefighters are EMR or above. That is one of our certificates. That's the first thing we put them through most of the time is EMR.
Right, because you got mostly medical, so
Yes.
you want people that's gonna be.
And we wanted to get them into the mix right away.
Right. Understand that.
So Chief, would another requirement of this position be a recruiter for the fire department?
Yes, it would be. They would also be in charge of recruitment in that. And to go with, to get with MinHire, which is a state-run program, sorta, that people can go on and look at this, and then they send the recruits for your city to you, and that, and to get with MinHire to see if we can get recruitments in, to go to our surrounding cities and probably have a recruitment event for all 3 cities, 4 cities, you know. That's once or twice, or at least twice a year, if not more.
Has that been successful or no?
The last recruitment event we had, we did get 2 people out of it.
Cool.
And those 2 are right now going through our firefighter 1 and 2 classes right now. So we have 5 people in firefighter 1 and 2 right now.
Okay. Younger guys?
Not really. They're probably in the 30s.
Right.
They're from 22, 23 to 30, right in there.
At least they're interested.
Yes, they are interested.
That's important.
And today, Rodney, when you had that explosion, you had 4 people there, and then you had another call too. You had that PI, so you had to pull 2 guys out of there to go run to a
Yes.
PI, so you're down 2 guys right there, so.
Yep. Yep, we were busy for
Yeah.
an hour.
Sure.
hour and a half.
Best case scenario, you're only responding to 1 call at a time
Hopefully, but you never
with
know.
nothing overlapping.
In the best case scenario, yes.
Yeah.
But we have had it where we are overlapping calls and we're trying to figure out how we're gonna cover
So
them. At
we're-
that time, we would call mutual aid if we needed to.
So we're looking at this position would, primary role be firefighter, secondary be training officer, community outreach coordinator, recruitment. There would be a grant that we can apply for to cover, most or part of this cost for 3 years.
Yes, we have the SAFER grant that is opening on February 13th that we
Yeah.
plan on applying for.
And currently, the staffing levels are 27 versus, 35 is the ideal. So could it be a possibility that if we go forward with this position, that in 3 years, they do their job and have their crew, have a staff up to 35, would we need this position anymore?
At that time, I do believe so. We probably still wouldn't need the position because in 3 years, I expect our call volume to be roughly 1,100 calls per year,
Even more?
even more.
And so the need for this position is not going
Yes.
away?
And I'll be honest with you, this is a temporary fix before we look at duty crews, before we look at going full-time firefighters.
So like this training officer now, is this training person the only one you have for a training officer?
The person would be the training officer,
Mhm.
and a training officer sets up our trainings. They do some of the trainings, but we still would have to have a outside vendor.
That's what I was wondering, because it's like, if she's gonna be full-time during the day, she's not gonna be training other officer or firefighters at night.
We'd adjust
Or
the
your-
schedule at that time
Okay.
to,
So she could,
so that person could get there
because
and,
otherwise they'll be burned out too.
yeah. What, we would adjust the schedule if we had a training on Monday night where they had to be there during the day and night, we would either look at giving them time off on Monday or giving them time off later in the week.
So they can,
But also this training officer, like I said, they would coordinate with our outside vendor because there are some trainings that we cannot do.
oh, okay.
We need an outside vendor to do them. And that's, so they would coordinate with them.
Oh, okay, she'd set
And
it up.
that way we could, make sure we get properly trained to meet what the hours we need to get recertified every year.
So say, Rodney, that SAFER grant, is that part of that, the state is talking about a $300 million grant for public safety too, is that a
No,
different grant?
that is not part of the SAFER
That's,
grant.
okay. Well, I mean, there's another grant to look at, so.
Yeah, the SAFER grant's a FEMA grant, it's a federal grant. We actually had one back in, 2008, 9, 10, 11 that we used. It was a 4-year grant. Again, though, it does expire, but it expires over time and reduces annually the amount. So you'll have a chance to absorb that in your budget. And, from what we've seen, and my observation is that, this problem is gonna get even more complicated and more difficult to attract new people. Mainly it's just because of the attitudes of people today. People don't have the same commitment toward service that people did 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. So attracting people that'll serve and stay with you is gonna be, it's gonna be a real challenge as we go forward.
That's the one question I would ask, is what, in your experience, what is if there is one thing, or if it's 2 or 3, whatever, obstacles that keep people from wanting to be volunteer firefighters now? It's kind of a false dichotomy. You can want to serve your city and also want to make some money. It's not one or the other, but what do you think the biggest obstacle or obstacles is?
The time commitment.
Yeah?
Yeah, to start out, just before we can even let you go into a fire in that,
Yeah.
you need roughly 300 hours of training in that. And then we train we have something scheduled every Monday night, just about, where we're training, or Monday during the day. You have to be willing to get up in the middle of the night at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. If you're a day responder, you have to be willing to get up at noon to go to these. You have to be willing to walk away from your family's functions.
Do anything else?
Yeah. It's like I said, and the biggest
I
thing.
mean, it's a tough sell.
And
It's
the
a
biggest
tough
thing,
sell. Yeah.
you have to have your family support in that.
Yeah.
Because without their support, you're not gonna do this.
No.
And you have to be able to, you're gonna see stuff that people shouldn't see.
I understand.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but the biggest thing is the time commitment. People wanna do it until we tell them the time commitment.
Yeah.
And then and 30% of the calls doesn't seem like a lot in that, but each call runs an hour. Just going out of the house, you're gonna be gone an hour or better.
Yeah.
So, it's, like I said, it is the time commitment.
No, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, because one of the things I get, Rodney, too, is that you gotta wait 10 years before you actually make any money. I mean, if they could lower that, be invested down to 5 years, maybe that'll keep more people around, but it seems that from 0 to 10, you really don't, there's no incentive to stay there, so.
Mr. Mayor, East Bethel, before I got on, did have it at 5 years, vesting in the pension at 5 years. What they found out, and the reason they raised it to 10 years, is at 5 years, they were losing more people than they were at 10.
Okay.
Yeah. By personal experience, 1 to 5, you're ready to go get it. 5 to 10, you're starting to wonder, why am I doing this? Once you get to 10 to 15, you're looking at, okay, I see a light at the end of the tunnel on this pension. 15 to 20, you go, man, I'm going to start making some money on this pension now. So, that's the way we look, we try to get them to look at it, come on, if you can get 10, you're pretty sure we can get you to 20.
Yeah.
And that.
What's the fallback position if council doesn't want to move forward on this particular thing? I'm not saying that's where I'm at, but what's your backup plan?
To keep running the way we are,
Just
and
yeah.
hopefully I don't burn out the firefighters.
Yeah.
Well, like you said, too, the duty crew, you're gonna have to look at the duty crew.
Yep, eventually we'll have to look at a duty crew,
And that's gonna cost you.
and that is gonna cost us money, because if a person's on duty, they're gonna be getting paid hourly.
Yep.
And that, no matter if they're at the station or if they're sitting at their house, they're gonna get paid hourly.
And the other thing about a duty crew,
Conundrum.
and eventually it may come to that, but is that even though there's more cost than doing it this way, it's all those complications in doing shared services.
Yeah.
Some areas are not, or some cities aren't gonna participate, or not gonna be as cooperative as others, and others are gonna find out they're pulling more of their load than they should. This way, we still have some control over it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there has been neighboring cities that have went to duty crews in that. One of the neighboring cities right now is on a duty crew. They're actually looking at hiring 12 full-time firefighters because of the duty crews. It works for a little while, but it does not work forever.
So you're moving forward with the SAFER grant, right?
We will apply for the SAFER grant when it does open in that, so.
What's the timetable on that, Rodney?
It opens February 13th to March 17th.
Okay.
And then I don't know what the
They'll
approval.
notify if you get it or not?
Yep, I don't know what the approval is.
And that
right
would,
now.
if you did get it, that would at least buy us some experience in funding new
Yes,
position, for
for the-
example, and instead of speculating, we'll have some actual
Yes.
real live data, you know?
Yep.
How effective is it? Or is the obstacle or obstacles simply insurmountable?
Yes, it would buy us some
Yeah,
experience in that. It
Sure.
would cover, you know, if we could get it and get it to cover the 24 budget, 25 budget, and like I said, it's usually 2 to 4 years.
Yeah.
And that, you know, would give us some data and see how well this works if it does not work.
That would help a lot.
But like I said, the main reason is to try to prevent burnout on our day people. And like I said, and to get these other positions, you know, the training officer, community outreach, and recruitment, retention, and all that too. And there would be other duties assigned too, that we could relieve our volunteers from doing.
Can this be acted upon, will we know more about the SAFER grant?
I
Yeah, I mean, it can be acted upon at any time.
Okay.
You know, hopefully, once the SAFER grant is submitted, there'll be some award announcement made, I'm hoping within 2 to 3 months after the applications are in. Based on that timetable, it looks like maybe sometime in May or June. And what we did was we just created what savings that we're going to achieve this year because of Rodney's changes he's made in the department that would allow us to pay for this for the rest of 2023 if it started July the 1st. But anytime after that, you know, if it was even August or September, this is just something we're looking at as a means to solve our problem. Doesn't mean we're going to solve it in July, could be August or September, but if you want to feel more comfortable with this, we can wait till we get the announcement on the SAFER grant, and then you can make a decision on how you wish to proceed.
So right now, because of the chief savings, we have enough to fund this position for half a year under the current budget,
That's correct.
or I should say, under the current firefighter's budget. So, well, overall, I do think it's a good idea. I don't want firefighter burnout. I want firefighters who want to keep coming to calls. And I want to provide a high level of service to our residents, that when they need the firefighters, that they are there.
Yes, and council members, and that, as of today, we've responded to 97 calls since the first of the year.
Chief, do we offer our firefighters any type of award or recognition for the amount of calls progressively through the year if they can make them?
No, we do not. We were doing, on our voluntary appreciation dinners and that, we were giving out awards for, you know, Station 2 Responder of the Year, Station 1, and that. Since 2020, we have not did that. And that, it's just because in 2020, Chief Ducharme thought everybody should have got the award.
Right.
Because of what we went through, you know, so, and that has gone by. We do, you know, we try not to do peer pressure on people saying, hey, you know, you're not doing this out front, you know, that, so, you know, like, and, you know, I personally do recognize them, and I personally do talk to them and thank them for that, so.
Any other questions? So where do we want to go with this? What do we want to do? We wanna
Oh, I'd be in favor of
the half a year?
pursuing in some fashion. If it's a half a year, we get applied for the SAFER grant,
Yeah.
and in probably 6 months, we'll no more.
One other thing too is we can probably come up with some other figures too, that assuming we don't get the SAFER grant, we would still achieve some of these savings going on into 2024 based on reduction of cost for especially the position for the deputy fire chief, which we're not looking really to replace at this time. The reduced overtime or payment we're making for these day responders that wouldn't have to respond to so many calls. So we could also give some information to what it would look like going into 2024 without the SAFER grants, to give you some idea of what this would cost if we funded it all ourselves.
So we'd have options.
Correct.
I like that.
And we can develop those figures pretty quickly because we'll start some of our budget discussions for 2024 within the next 4 to 6 weeks. So we can have those figures fairly soon to be part of our budget discussion for 2024.
Okay. Got everything you need? Rodney, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks.
Good luck, Chief.
Item number 7.
Good job today, Chief.
Yeah.
Public information and citizen communication discussion.
Carrie, I'm gonna give you this cord right here because the other one's not working correctly. So, we have a distinguished guest tonight. Carrie Frost, who's our expert in city communications, is gonna kinda give us a little bit of overview on what resources we have to communicate with our residents. We realize this is extremely important, and City Council has requested a review of improved means to communicate with our residents. Carrie's gonna give us a little update on that and be able to answer some questions on maybe what we can, what we can't do, or explore other areas of trying to better communicate with our residents. So with that, I'll turn it over to Carrie and she'll present this PowerPoint and we'll try to answer any questions you have going forward.
I had fun with this one, so,
Star Wars.
yeah. Currently, for the different venues of communication that we use to get messages out to residents and businesses. To start out with the easy ones, we have our reader board at the 65 and Viking. We have the different venues that we use to have show our meeting videos, and that includes cable channel 10, which is through Mid-Continent, our city YouTube channel, and our media center on the website, which is, it's also called Vibit. Speaking of our website, we have several email lists that we use to get information out to residents or anybody who signs up for it. We have our city newsletter, and we have 2 different social media accounts that the city uses. Start out with our reader board. Our reader board averages between 5 and 10 slides on any one, essentially a program. We set up a program and it repeats those slides over and over throughout the day. The time per message varies. It varies on how much text is on the slide or what kind of message you want out there. The average, the recommendation is 1 to 2 seconds per line of text, so that people have time to read it. Our reader board can do a variety of different color capabilities and can do animation, but we do not use that because our own city ordinance does not allow for that. So we just use the static messages that rotate. Our reader board gets updated weekly. There is currently no cost for it. It was a one-time thing to get the reader board and the software. Right now, myself and our gal at the reception desk, Emily, those are the two of us who can actually update the reader board. We're the only two that have access to that program. As for content, it's generally meeting schedules, you know, when certain city meetings are coming up, when different commission meetings are coming up. We will put community events on there if it's requested, but city meetings and city-sponsored events have priority when it comes to display. We do generally, in an effort to try and keep the programming to a minimum so that somebody can actually see all of the slides on there, we don't usually put more than 10 slides into that rotation at one time. So if we're getting to the larger end of how many we have up there, city meetings and city sponsors events will take priority over any other requests that we've received to have on the reader board. As for the time required to update that regularly, it can be anywhere from 10 minutes to just update our existing meeting slides with what the next scheduled meeting is, or it can be up to an hour if we're trying to create an entire series of new slides. We've had it before where we've had, like during, for example, the week of Booster Day, and we're advertising different events that will be going on at the Booster Day event. We've had it where we've been updating multiple slides all at the same time, just in an effort to keep everything moving on there.
Carrie, could I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Have you guys ever thought of changing the ordinance so that you can have more of a interesting sign to look at? Are you concerned about distractions of drivers?
It's basically distractions of
So
drivers.
it's an insurance issue?
Yeah.
And a liability
And,
issue?
you know,
okay.
there's lots of things that you could be really creative with, but
Oh, I'm sure.
we have people.
Gary could come up with a lot of interesting things.
You know,
Yeah.
just to try to get them off their cell phones and texting while they're driving down the
Yeah,
road. We don't want to add
exactly.
another distraction.
You might distract them
Yeah,
from texting, yeah.
We have played with it a little bit just to see what it can do, but generally, by far, we don't use that.
Okay.
Then, again, for our meeting videos, we have 3 different avenues that we use to get the videos out there. We also, as a backup, we also record our videos to DVD as kind of a last-ditch backup. And that's what we would duplicate if somebody wanted a hard copy of a meeting video. For Channel 10, it also shows on Midco TV, Channel 77. There's essentially two different programs that run on Channel 10. There's what we call Carousel, which is the slideshow that goes most of the day. And then there's what they call Cablecast, which is what's going on right now. If anybody's watching live, it would be the video playing, or when we schedule the playbacks of the videos. For the Cablecast content, like I said, it does live videos and it does a playback. As our playback schedule, we program in replays of city council meetings, of planning commission meetings, and of our community meetings. Community meetings can include town hall meetings, meet the candidate sessions. We've had a video of Booster Day parade, that sort of thing. That's what we can schedule in there. But by far, most of the day, it's that slideshow, those carousel slides.
Could I again
Yeah.
interject? We talked recently about there seemed to be some missing videos on YouTube. And I don't have any data to support this, it's just my guess that YouTube is probably the most common channel people use as opposed to the media center on the website. to watch meetings of, or watch videos of meetings that have occurred. And I noticed that it was hard to find videos, and you gave me an explanation for it as far as it seemed like a default with the YouTube. But another person I know who's very knowledgeable about YouTube says you have to designate them to go wind up in these other categories like live and all this kind of stuff. And then I double checked, and my wife had, this the night before, had watched, it was the last planning meeting, which was certainly noteworthy. So, and that was, she watched it live, and it was in the home category on YouTube after that. So I'm confused, but what I've, you know, and I'm not suggesting anything nefarious or untoward or any of that kind of stuff. It's just more of a question is all it is we need to have all the, most people like me are not the cyber whiz kids that you are, okay? And so we want to look for videos under home or maybe under videos, maybe under playlists or something, but not live and not all those other categories you can use. So they need to wind up in home. They're really in home. They don't need to be anywhere else. They were always in home. I don't know when this changed, you know. This is speaking on YouTube. And the other thing I've noticed on the Media Center, because I'm a real fan of the website. I think you guys did a great job putting the website together. It's very user-friendly. If I can use it, it must be pretty user-friendly. And I noticed that the videos that are up there have been truncated to now it's primarily after the 1st of 2022, with a couple of exceptions, and I even know which exceptions they are. On the Media Center, the Planning Commissioner from October 29th, 2019 is on there for some reason, and March 23rd, 2021 is on there, but otherwise, for most of all the meetings that I noticed anyway, unless it's changed radically in the past day or two, it seemed to, everything before January 1st, 2022 went away. And again, I'm not a cyber whiz kid, but I can't believe that storage costs or having them available for residents who may want to do, you know, maybe do research, like that's what you've helped me do research of past videos. I don't see why they're not, if not every one of them is available through the website, why more of them aren't, at least going back 3 years or 4 years, you know? Can you help me understand that?
That becomes an issue. Let me skip ahead here. We'll go to Media Center here.
Yep.
For Media Center, we generally, it's between a year and 18 months that a video is up there for display. It's not that it has gone away or that it's, you know, or that we don't have it anymore, but we do limit how many load because that makes a difference on how quickly the page loads, which is very, very similar to our website, how we kind of truncate how far back you can find packets, minutes, agendas, that sort of thing. Because if we had all the way back to 2005 or prior, it would take forever to load. And it's,
Well, is there some hybrid where you can say load, you know, starting after January 1st, 2022, and then maybe it's already there and I don't know how to use it, is to say if you want to go further back, well then that's up to you and you can request further back.
Well,
is that a
and that's-
possibility?
You brought up the one video that from 2019.
Right, planning
That's,
commission,
yeah, because we still have that, it's still in the library, we can go back and essentially reactivate it.
But I
so
mean,
that
can
it's
the
still-
user, without having to bother you and take up your time, can the user do that?
Yeah, it's kind of all or nothing.
Why?
It's set up with a drop-off date.
Well, can we unset it up that way? Using technical terms?
It wouldn't be, it would be, like I said, all or nothing. We'd have to change it so that all of the videos have that drop-off date. And it wouldn't be per user, so like, the home
Well,
user wouldn't be able to go in and
maybe I'm the
change
only
which
one
ones
that it matters to, and that's a distinct possibility, but I'd like, that's something that I just, as you're the headmaster of the media center or whatever, that's a feature that I would like for anybody, not me, but for any resident to be able to go further back in time and do basic research on a particular topic, you know. I'm not saying you gotta, you know, cross-reference it like the Library of Congress, but just, you know, just have the ability to go back further in time. And I understand, yeah, you want it to load fast, you don't wanna have 400 videos coming up. But again, you're only, it's only the header of a video. It's not like you're loading the whole video every time you know, you're just loading the reference to the video. So it shouldn't be too tough, I don't think.
So like an archive? So like an archive section where you could punch
Yeah,
up the
where you
date?
can actually go back and retrieve stuff, and topically would be good too. I mean, at least it's organized by EDA versus Planning Commission versus Park versus City Council. But if you get
YouTube is
into-
organized that way, the media center is not.
The media center is not?
The media center from the website has city council videos, planning commission videos, and community meetings. But YouTube has, for example, the Parks Commission videos and EDA videos. It has our previous Roads Commission videos.
Well, EDA shows up on the media center too.
I don't think it does.
Wow. I better get to the doctor right away, because I remember watching them.
I only know because I would have had to have uploaded it,
Yeah.
so.
Oh. Yeah, I'm almost positive that I saw them on there. But anyway, that was just my concern, is that both on YouTube, it's being miscategorized or whatever, so it's not coming up under home, which is what everybody first looks at. It's the default
I can
channel
actually
you go to.
bring that up. So this is our city YouTube channel. And here's, yeah, it defaults to home. And it goes generally with the most recent videos, generally.
We're live?
Yes.
Can we watch ourselves?
We probably could.
Okay,
Um,
sorry.
there-
Get into a
There's a
terminal
few
do
second
loop.
delay, yep.
Okay.
Generally, they show up in order unless, we have to, like, sometimes we've had it happen where we've had an issue with YouTube recording correctly, and so I have to go back to our server recording and convert that and then upload it. And so that kind of puts things out of order. The easiest way to find a specific video is to go under playlists here. And
But
then
how
it's
would the average resident, and I understand I'm below average in terms of my cyber skills, but how would the average resident know any of this? See, you wind up getting there and you expect to see it under the home, the default category. And then, you know, I'm just sharp enough to know to check under videos, but, you know, it's like it's a stumbling block is what I'm saying.
Unfortunately, with YouTube, there's very, very limited amount of customization that we can do with the page. You can look at our page versus any other city that has a YouTube channel and they have the exact same category. You can go to Jimmy Kimmel and he's got the same categories that we do because there is not customization for the page. But the one thing that I can possibly do is essentially it add down in this area, this row down here, beneath where it says videos, it would add the playlist, the exact same thing that we have right here where it's split out into the different categories. So I mean, it saves you a click, but I can do that, but it would not, it doesn't really, you can't divide it into sections. It will split it out, like I said, the way it shows here. and it would just show it down underneath this row here.
Okay, well, where I'm kind of going, and I guess I'll take the blame for bringing up this topic recently, you know, as a council member, is what I'm looking for is simply a really useful tool for residents to find out information about East Bethel and what's going on and events that happen at meetings, if people comment on one Facebook site or another, or they talk over coffee, and they can actually look stuff up, you know, without having to go to a graduate course on how to use this thing. Because I do think the website is good, and I think the videos are good and all that. Now and then you get volume problems, but that happens on everything, so. But what I want us to do is to, and maybe we need to actually hire a bit of somebody's time who does this for a full-time job, you know, a living, a consultant, is to, as I understand it, in marketing, communications, all that kind of stuff, you always want things to be self-reinforcing. So this cross-references that, which kind of takes you back there, teaches you how to use the website leads you to other things, you know. And it's not segregated, you know. It all is one big unit that reinforces and ties into the East Bethel Bulletin, even into your sign out there, even without all the bells and whistles. But that's kind of what I'm thinking, is I know you're actually the person who does all the work in East Bethel, and the rest of them are just on vacation. We both know that's true now. No. But no, you work hard, and I'm just wondering if it might be useful to build on what you've already done, to possibly bring in a consultant who has experience with municipalities doing exactly this stuff. Would you be at all open to that?
Definitely.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean,
All right.
This is.
I don't think we're talking about big bucks or anything. It's a pretty straightforward deal.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things we could do. I mean, like you said, I wear a lot of different hats, so this is part-time at best.
That was just a dig on Jack. You know. Gotta do that, you know.
But, there's a lot of different moving pieces to all the communications things that we've got going on.
I do want to compliment you on the East Bethel Bulletin too.
Thank
you. You know, it's well put together. And my only thing is, I think we could up it to not every month like the Ham Laker. I mean, it's maybe over communication, but take it from 4 to maybe 6 times a year, so it's bi-monthly, you know, that kind of thing, without adding a lot to your workload. And it could probably be a little more succinct too, maybe a little less, you know, just purely East Bethel focused or immediate area focused, and not, you know, articles from the Met Council about how to love and maintain your septic tank or something like that, you know.
That one gets a little bit tricky too.
Yeah, that comes with the debt services. No, you gotta run so many articles of ours. That's part of the deal.
Yeah, again, back to our media center,
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very similar to what we have on YouTube. We don't have as many videos on our media center. Like I said, on YouTube, we have the EDA and the Parks Commission. But on our media center, we generally only have City Council, Planning Commission, and then our community meetings. So again, our Meet the Candidates, our town hall meetings, that sort of thing. We do pay for a subscription to the software, to this one. The only thing that our media center really offers that we don't have in the other places is we have those index points on the video. So if somebody is looking for a specific discussion, they can click on that item in the agenda list and it jumps straight to that.
Which is handy.
Yep.
Yeah.
We do have that capability in YouTube, we just have not implemented that, because that's where the time suck comes up, is going through that video
Yeah.
bit by bit to input the,
Yeah,
manually
it's,
input those
it's
time stamps.
laborious, yeah.
So that's what we have on this one that we don't have on YouTube. Otherwise, it's very, very similar between the two. It's just that this one we pay for. For our, whoop, let me go back here. For our website, we do have several different email lists. We have notifications for our calendars. We have 2 different calendars. We have a community events calendar and a main calendar, which is essentially city meetings. We have our news flash, which any sort of little blurb that we put out, if we want, you know, responses, or if we want somebody to know about that right away, we send it out on a news flash. Anybody who has signed up for an email from the news flash gets that. There's a separate list for bid postings.
Is that automatically created when you've got a login on the site, or no? That news flash?
No, you
'Cause I
have to specifically request to be added to that list. It's part of the notify me on the website.
Because I have a login, but I've never gotten a news flash, no.
Yep, you have to
I don't feel
request it.
slighted or anything, I
Yep.
just wondered what it was. Have you considered just having a how to get the most out of this website article, or our website article for the East Bethel Bulletin, or on the website itself? How to get the most out of this website, because it's a good website, but if you're a stranger there, you know, you don't know exactly what to do, you know?
Right. It's something we've kind of kicked around, but
Well, maybe that's something we can,
One of the things that we had discussed was, rather than an article, which is sometimes kind of confusing when you're trying to explain it in a written form,
Mhm.
is to have maybe a series of workshops here at City Hall. Say, come here and we'll demonstrate how to maximize your use or get the most use out of your website, show you how to set anything up. I don't know if we'd
or
get,
maybe just a tutorial
yeah,
on the website.
do a video.
How to get the
Yeah.
most out of our, welcome to our website. Here's a tutorial, how to get the most out of it.
I think
Mm.
that's a good idea. That's probably the best compromise of the 2 things we just talked about there.
Yeah, yeah.
And just do a video and explain the basics of it, so people can follow that. If they have any questions, and would like to come here to get a little more information, we'd be more than happy to sit down with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have, like I said, there's a few different emails or email lists, the bid postings, job postings. We also have an alert center. I think we've only really used the alert center twice. But it does require a profile creation in order to receive the emails. You do have to sign up for it, because we're not just we don't just spam everybody with every email that comes out. The website gets updated as needed. Granted, it's still, there's a lot that needs it right now, but it's kind of as needed, yeah, priority. We do spend about $7,000 a year for a subscription to Civic Plus, who's our website host. Again, time required for that. It really, really depends on what it is that we're working on. If it's a simple update, you know, adding a meeting to the calendar, it can take 10 minutes. If we're adding new content or creating a new module or something, it could take a few days, you know. I know that I've been working with our fire department. They've been very, very patient with me with waiting for me to get it done, but we've been trying to revamp the information for our fire department page, and, you know, get more information, get more applicable information out there, and that takes a lot longer than just a quick 10-minute update. We are eligible for another redesign this year. The last one we had was in 2019. We are eligible for these, I believe, every 3 years per our contract with Civic Plus. We are eligible again this year. Technically, we were eligible last year, but I wasn't gonna do that and elections at the same time.
No, I don't blame you.
So, the good thing about a redesign is it kind of refreshes the website, gives it a new look, increases access to the information that we have on there, and it makes us double check our accessibility requirements. Our website is subject to ADA compliance standards, and so font size, font color, the background color, all that kind of stuff is things that we have to fall within certain guidelines so that anybody who has a visual disability or a visual impairment or even, you know, a disability with reading or something like that, so that our website falls within those guidelines, and those are issued federally. Our website is also subject to our records retention policy, so every time we make a change, we have to keep track of that, we have to keep record of it, just as if we had sent out an official notification.
Sure. Makes sense.
We do, if we do a redesign, we are also eligible to have what they call an alignment review. It's essentially an analytic review of essentially our search engine optimization, if there's other products that Civic Plus has that can help us out, what we're looking for, and how we can improve user experience on the website. There are other additions that, you know, we can look at other than just new pages and changes to the static content. There are other modules that we can look into. They do have a blog option, they do have opinion polls and that sort of thing. A lot of that tends to kind of overlap with social media type interactions. But yeah, generally our website is kind of our workhorse when it comes to a lot of our communications.
Under social media, you show Facebook. What do you do on Facebook, or?
We do have, let me skip here. We do have a city Facebook account, or a city Facebook page.
You do? That's not Min Community, is it? East Bethel Min Community?
Nope.
Well, that's
those are
interesting.
not official pages.
I've never seen it, so.
No. I can, let me see real quick here. We've got a quick link right up in the corner of our homepage that takes us to city homepage.
Oh, well, you know, I have been there. Okay.
Generally, for our social media stuff, it's City Council and Planning Commission meeting packets. We post links to those. We will post information about community events and community meetings. But generally, we keep that to a minimum. The commenting ability is turned off on our page, because that is another thing where it gets into records retention, and any interaction that we have on there, we are susceptible to keep for, depending on what the topic is or whatever, we have to keep it for so many years.
Yep.
That's another thing that can get really in-depth. You can have a 10-minute update for just a simple, quick text message, or you could spend 90 minutes on there creating a media campaign because you have an event that you want to hammer home every week for the next 6 weeks. So that's another one that it really varies on how much time can be spent on it. Both of our social media accounts, both Facebook and Nextdoor, they're both free. We don't pay anything for those. Jack and myself are the only ones that have access to those. So it's not everybody and their great aunt Sally can post
It's basically
messages
an
to it.
information dumping ground is what it is. yeah.
It's a place basically just for public notices and information.
It's an online version of the sign by 65.
Good, good analogy.
Yeah, okay. Do you have any personal knowledge of any consultants for, municipal communications?
I do
Or do you
not.
know of a source of possible knowledge? I know someone, but I don't think we're talking about kind of money you gotta do on a request for proposals or anything, but it'd be nice to find somebody who had municipal experience, ideally in this area.
Mhm.
But you don't mind if I poke around and try to find something else? Could I make a recommendation for and I don't expect this to happen immediately or, that kind of thing. I'm not planning on 6 more copies of the East Bethel Bulletin this year necessarily, but I thought of a good starting point that maybe we could get into the next East Bethel Bulletin would be to simply, if you go in the 2040 comprehensive plan, it maybe I could stop hitting the mic, that would help. But it talks about on January 12th, 2017, it's under 2040 Plan Vision and Public Engagement. And the East Bethel held a public visioning session in 2 parts at the Senior Center. I didn't make those. I remember that though. And it was focused toward the Chamber of Commerce, and then it was a public version, all that is, you can read it right there. But what it is it states the 6 or so elements of what they perceive, 7 elements of what they perceive the vision of the people of East Bethel to be at that time. And just as a suggestion, you can take it or leave it, but it could be a good point of departure for us. What I'm trying to get at is I want the average resident, averagely engaged, aware of what's going on in the city a little bit, to know that we're trying to communicate to them. Because I've heard it from many, many people that they don't perceive that as the case. Why, I don't know, But I want them to at least have the impression that we're trying to keep them informed, that we're soliciting their input, not just talking at them, but asking questions. And so the question to ask is, this was the vision that was defined in 2017. Do you think this still is the vision of as residents of East Bethel now? And if not, what would you add or take away from this vision here? Okay, I'm just tossing it out to both of you as just a possible thought starter or something, whatever the proper term is. And you get what I'm saying? Am I clear? Am I anywhere close to clear?
I think if you're looking for, let me flip through my stuff here. You're looking for more communication goals.
I'm looking for more communication.
Yeah,
Just
but
back and forth,
we
not
would need
not
to,
at the residents, not just from the residents, but a dialogue, That's what I'm.
we need to kind of specify, how you want, what's the end result that you want from it, and how we can get there, whether it's short-term goals or long-term goals for communication.
Yeah, well, as I think I just said, I want people to know that we're actively soliciting their input, as opposed to saying, just keep your opinions to yourself, That we're actively soliciting their input, and we're being as transparent about what we're up to as a city as we can be.
And then it's how
And maybe
you want
it's-
to go about getting that information,
Yeah,
whether
well,
it's
that's why I'm-
electronically or.
That's why I'm thinking that a few hours of somebody, a consultant who's experienced doing exactly this might save us a lot of angst.
One of the things that we had discussed too was maybe doing some type of a survey in the newsletter. asking residents what they wanted, what were they looking for in content?
Yeah.
What kind of articles do they want to see?
Do they even read it?
Yeah, do you read it, or do you?
Put it in the
we
bird
like-
cage, yeah.
Yeah, does it go in the round file, what happens? But try to get some indication and some feedback from people what they're really looking for from a newsletter. The thing that we haven't come up with a good answer to so far is how do we get the responses back? People can do it, we wanna try to do it electronically, give them a link to us.
Well, this is why,
Yeah,
in my career, there were a number of times where hiring someone to provide a service who was just a topic expert
yeah,
was some of the best money I ever spent, instead of everybody having to reinvent the wheel, spend, 8 weeks getting backgrounded just, for what this person walks in the door with. So I'm not wedded to it, but I like to promote the idea that spending a few dollars on somebody who really is experienced and knowledgeable in this could be of help to us. I really believe that. And at the same time, I think you've done a terrific job. And Jack, I know you did it with Jack, so it's complimenting both of you. Well, she executes, you're the vision master. Jack, yeah.
I
Yeah.
appreciate the compliment, but she deserves all the credit.
I think you're most of the way there, actually. It's just like tying it together and getting that
Right.
cross-referencing thing, self-reinforcing thing going.
And I think what it comes down to is, how much time do you want dedicated to it? 'Cause
Well, that would be part of the discussion, yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, because, there's some things right now that, yeah, we can absolutely implement, but there's gonna be a trade-off somewhere,
Yeah.
so.
There's only one carry.
Yeah, well,
Unfortunately.
Well,
I
my
can't-
back,
yeah, I
well,
can't
that's my
duplicate
back
myself.
pocket plan is I'm gonna clone you.
Okay.
That's- See, that's, we'll have 2 more carries.
All right.
and- Yeah.
well, and we're working on getting Emily transitioned into doing some of this stuff. One of the biggest problems with Carrie's time is every other year, she has a tremendous amount of time that's devoted to the elections. We don't have one this year, which is very good because we got a break. But next year, there'll be 3 elections
Yep.
because there'll be a presidential primary. So, we want to integrate Emily into doing some more of this stuff too, but we'll just try to balance it out. And again, if that's something we need to do and we need to hire some temporary help, maybe that's the solution.
Yeah.
So these are things we'll definitely look at and take into account.
But I think the goal is undeniably a laudable one,
Yeah.
a good one. Because we, as I said during the Meet the Candidates thing, a certain amount of trust was lost between the people of East Bethel and its government over that thing that happened 12 years ago. And that's just a fact. And I was here long before it and been here ever since. And whatever we can do to restore that is money and time well spent. And I don't think it takes a whole lot. People only have to know that you're trying. That's all,
Let me give just a little quick update on some comparison newsletters with some of our surrounding cities. One thing is always compared to Ham Lake. Ham Lake does a monthly publication.
Yeah, a Ham
but-
Laker, yeah.
But they spend $25,000 to $27,000 a year on that. They actually have an editor that puts all that together for them. St. Francis, Oak Grove, and Isani do like we do. They do a quarterly newsletter. City of Cambridge does not do a newsletter. But again, they have 2 newspapers that actually cover their council meetings, which
Right.
gives them quite a bit of exposure and lets people know
Right.
what's going on. Ramsey does one once every 2 months, bi-monthly. But they have a full-time staff person that's a communications director. So, we're trying to get things as best as we can. It's one thing we've always stated, the thing that we can improve the most on in the city is our communications effort.
Yeah.
That's true in any endeavor, and we're always looking for new ways to make those improvements.
Well, that's good. And thank you for what you are doing. You know, you're doing a lot.
Any other questions?
Not on that topic.
Before we go on, there was one thing that we should have done at the first of the meeting. We had a request to add one item to the agenda that we didn't add, so I'd like them to make, to see if somebody would make a motion to add an amendment to discuss the change in ordinance 2.71 to this discussion, which I sent out to you in an email earlier today, that is going to look at a revision of, a clarification of the way boards, committees, and commissions are appointed. And have just a brief discussion on that to get some direction moving forward. I had a discussion with Kevin today. He did provide a proposal for the way to clarify that, which is pretty simple and straightforward. The city attorney looked at it and had no problems. I talked with Kevin about maybe 2 little changes in that. So if that's the feeling of everybody, what we'd like to do is propose that for discussion at the February 27th city council meeting. We can do it as a public hearing, and we can make those proposed changes in there and get that taken care of and get that clarification straightened out. I think that needs to be done as soon as possible.
It's really important, you know, and this came up as a result of the whole EDA thing and all that. And we just want to make sure everything we do is done on the up and up and done properly and all that kind of stuff. And we're new to this, so, you know, if in any way we missed up now and then, we beg people to a little patience. But it forced me to read the municipal code, the city code, and I was just shocked that the lack of clarity in the language. I mean, the attorney said it was vague. Boy, it sure was. It didn't describe the way things are done. You know, there's not even a definition of a resident in our city code. Well, how can you use resident every 20th word and not even define what you're talking about? So, I mean, it's just, it was definitely something, and why people in the past haven't clarified this stuff, I don't know. But whatever, as long as, whenever we come across this kind of thing, where it's just in need of improvement, we just need to fix it, that's all.
Yeah, that's what we talked about, you know, with the planning commission, taking like a chapter, everything out of the ordinances, because some of them can be thrown out, or like
Yeah.
you said, they could just be
Yeah.
tightened up a little bit, so.
Yeah.
I'd
So
still
we
like to
just-
see the planning commission do that, I mean.
Yeah, we just need to
Yeah.
clean it up as we go.
Clean it up, tighten it up a little bit,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I agree with you.
So I'll follow up with you on, because I didn't give you the last version of my wording, and then you had other wording, so
All right.
we'll just chat about it and exchange emails and have it ready for you to do
Very good.
whatever you need to do with it.
Okay.
But it really comes down to codifying the way things should be handled in a very clear way, that's all.
Any more discussion?
Not for me.
That's all I have.
One more thing left to do.
Make motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Motion made, second discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you very much. Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you. Excellent slideshow. I appreciate